What's up, metalheads? Welcome to the Scrap Metal Podcast, the show for the misfits who've been listening to the same music since high school. I'm your host, John von Frankenstein, and joining me today is my metal thrashing mad co-host, Chris. Chris, I gotta ask you, man, how you feeling?
I gotta say, I'm feeling just a little bit underwhelmed.
Underwhelmed? Is it my outfit? Is it the braids? I know you don't like the Rangers. What is causing this feeling of underwhelmedness, Chris? And does it have anything to do with how you're keeping your heavy metal street cred?
It probably doesn't have anything to do with my heavy metal street cred.
Well, I'll listen anyway.
But something that I have talked about a lot on this podcast is my love of the Tony Hawk video games and how much those video games had an effect on my taste in music. And at some point, the Tony Hawk video games stopped being good.
Okay.
Thankfully, they came out with the game Skate, and I became a huge fan of the game Skate. I actually rediscovered Skate a few years ago when I realized I could play Skate 3 on the Xbox, and so I downloaded that, played the shit out of it, love it so much. And I was so excited when it was announced that there was going to be a new Skate game coming out.
Okay.
Recently, there was some posts on the Skate social media introducing this company, M Corp. And they had this really shitty looking, like, 90s era internet website. And like the website was interactive where you could buy M coins. You could call like the M Corp phone number. And so I called and was like going through the menu and hearing all the things they were saying. I think some like pro skaters were getting like M Corp gear. And we're getting like a briefcase filled with like an old cell phone, an M Corp ID card, like all this cool stuff. So seeing all this on the Skate socials, everyone was like, oh, there's probably going to be an announcement soon. Hopefully they're announcing like, even if not a release date, at least a release window. Let us know like when we think it's going to come out. So the day comes, it's Summer Games Fest. There's going to be something about Skate. They show a new video of, what's his name? From I Think You Should Leave. I think he's from
Tim Robbins.
He's in it.
Tim Robinson or something.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like an M Corp like spokesperson, and in the back are like people crying and like shredding paper and like all this and that, and he's talking about how great M Corp is. And so we're thinking like, oh, is this going to be the announcement of the new game? Because in one of the Skate games, I believe Skate 2, part of like the story is that a company is going around trying to put like these notches on skate spots so that you can't grind on the ledges and all this and that. And so they've been teasing that on the socials. And we're like, oh, that's probably what the game is going to be about. It's a return to that. Instead, it ended up just being an announcement that there's going to be playtesting on consoles. So they've been inviting fans to playtest on PC. Now they're inviting fans to play test on console, which is disappointing since we were all hoping for a release date or a release window. But it is reassuring that's like, okay, the fact that they're ready to test on console hopefully means that soon after the play testing starts, we'll get some more information on the release window for this game. So while it wasn't exactly the information I was looking for to fill that Tony Hawk Pro Skater sized hole in my heart, at least it's something. At least it seems like the game is starting, to move along. I think what has made the wait so hard is that they announced the game before they actually started working on it. Okay. So they've been very open about where they are in the process, and they've been showing like what they're referring to as like pre-alpha gameplay, where there's like no textures, and honestly the graphics look awful, but like you can see that, what the game is going to be is there. So like, I think that's what's adding to it, is that we've sat through years of pre-alpha footage. We just want to play the fucking game.
Yeah. Enough of the test stuff. Just give us the fucking game already. That's fair. But I mean, the fact that they went through the lengths to create the fake website and like the fake corporation and to have these promo videos with a spokesperson from the company and things like that is like, that's insane. That is a whole other level of that type of viral marketing that I love so much.
Yes.
That is just like, I love that they're so committed to the bit.
Yes.
You know, I love it. I love it when, you know, a video game or a movie or a TV show will build out a fake company like that and then go to those lengths. And even better is when you get fake bands created for these entities. So be it a video game, be it a movie, a TV show, when you've got a fake band involved, I am in. Chris, you brought up this banger of a fucking idea, and I'm so excited to get into some of our favorite fake bands. Chris, how excited are you?
Like you're saying, I'm so excited about this. I was inspired by seeing someone on Reddit post the scene from Airheads where they say, you know, trick question, asshole, Lemmy is God. Like, that's just a classic. And so I saw that and I'm like, oh, fucking fictional bands. How have we not talked about it already? There are so many fictional bands out there that I had trouble just like whittling down a list because I'm like, shit, there's a lot of them out there that I actually, you know, enjoy or want to talk about. So, yeah, I am very excited to discuss fictional bands.
I love that you bring up the Lone Rangers.
Yes.
Because they're lonely, but as the epidemic of male loneliness would hint to, of course they're lonely, but it's more than one of them, so they're the Lone Rangers.
Yes.
I fucking love Airheads, dude. That is such a good movie. Like, I grew up with that being on, like, TNT or, like, Comedy Central constantly.
Yeah.
So, like, I was watching this movie every time it was on, and, like, you've got Brendan Fraser looking like a fucking, like, Chris Cornell, like, knockoff, like a fucking rock god. And fucking young Adam Sandler. And Steve Buscemi pretty much just looks like Rex from Pantera.
And his name is Rex in the movie. It was, how much more on the nose can you be?
Yeah. But that's, like, that was, I remember watching that movie and being like, oh, this is what the world of, like, rock and roll and, like, trying to get a record deal and all this stuff is. And like, I remember feeling like they made this movie with so much love and understanding of what really matters to a band.
Yeah.
When they're like making their demands and he's like, I want a PRS custom 24 with the bird, with the dragon inlays and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, he knows what he's talking about. Someone involved in this movie actually plays guitar. This I love this movie. I'm so happy that you like opened things up with Airheads.
Yeah, it was so fun. Like, yeah, I've always loved the joke of the Lone Rangers. I've always loved that. What is disappointing is that some of these fake bands have fake music for them. Some of them don't.
Yeah.
The Lone Rangers song that they play, Degenerated, is actually a Reagan Youth song. So there's no original music written for the Lone Rangers, but it's such a great movie. And yeah, like I mentioned, the scene, because the first question they ask, it's like Harold Ramis is like a cop that they're trying to pass off as a music producer. Yeah. So they're trying to quiz him on if he's actually a music producer, and they're asking him about like David Lee Roth versus Van Halen, and then they bring up like who would win in a fight between Lemmy and God. He's like, Lemmy. It's like, wrong. It's like, God. Wrong. It's like, trick question, dickhead. Lemmy is God. And like, I've heard that line so many fucking times. I've heard that more than I've actually watched the movie, but yeah, the movie's a classic. And then I know like you have all of the things that are like the silly, like, oh, the band taking a radio station hostage. And it turns into like a Die Hard parody with Michael Richards being like the John McClane stand-in. And it's just, it's so silly and so ridiculous, but it's such a good time. And once I saw this clip, I was like, this would be such a fun episode talking about fucking fictional bands, whether you get music from the fictional band or whether it's just the fictional band exists. This was a band I knew we had to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Who did he play? Michael Richards. What was he? Another one of like the executives, or was he like a janitor or something like that?
If I remember,
I just remember him going through the air vents.
Yeah, I think he was someone who worked at the radio station. I think he was an employee at the radio station. See, I just brought this up at work. He was a janitor in UHF.
Oh, yes.
He was a janitor in UHF because we were having the discussion of like, we were saying like, oh, what would happen if we were all taken hostage? And I was like, I would want to annoy the hostage takers the way he does by being locked in the closet singing the theme song to Bonanza. So like that's what I was thinking about. But yeah, Michael Richards, I want to say he plays like an employee of the radio station that's
something
crawling
along
around
those
in
lines.
the air vents and everything. Yeah, it's great.
I'm so glad that you called out UHF because I'll think of him as, I always mix it up because I know in Transylvania 61000 he plays, or 65000 he plays like a butler who's constantly trying to play like physical jokes on the people that are at Dracula's castle, and he'll like stick his leg through the door as they're like closing it, and at one point it's actually his leg, not like a prop leg. And then he's the janitor in UHF and the radio station employee in Airheads. And then there's that one incident that he had at the Laugh Factory. So the next band that I want to talk about, when you bring up the fact that with some of these movies, we do get actual music for the band, in kind of sort of, I guess it doesn't truly count because there are other bands that have recorded the songs and they just had them cover these songs in the movie. But the soundtrack is supposed to be this band's recordings of these songs. And that's, which I just thought off the top of my head now, wasn't even on my list originally, but the band Steel Dragon from the movie Rockstar. I fucking love that soundtrack so much. Their cover of Blood Pollution, We All Die Young, Long Live Rock and Roll, like all those covers are so good, and they're like standout songs, Stand Up and Shout. Oh my God. I used to like scream this song in my car, like driving to college. Like I just love this whole entire soundtrack, and like the whole larger than life, like hair metal band. They've got Zach Wall playing guitar in the band. It's Mark Wahlberg playing a fucking metal singer. It's so good. It's so, again, like kind of gives you the insight of like what people in the movie industry believe that being in a band is like.
Yeah.
Like the moment where Mark Wahlberg plays the singer in a cover band for the band Steel Dragon. He eventually ends up getting a chance to audition for the band. It's pretty much the story of Ripper Owens and him entering Judas Priest. And someone in his office asks him for help fixing a printer, and the guy's like just staring at him the whole time because he's like wearing mascara from the show before, like from the night before the show that he did. And he's like, "Are you wearing makeup?" And he just goes, "I'm in a band." And the guy's like, "Oh, okay. Like, yeah, that's the only excuse he needed to be like, "Oh, right. Okay, that makes sense. Got it. Wearing makeup because he's in a band. Totally get it."
Totally.
I fucking love this movie, dude. It's like, I've seen on Twitter a bunch like, what's a movie that you know is terrible but you will defend to the death? And that's fucking Rockstar. I love this movie so much. Have you ever watched this? Like, have you sat down and watched Rockstar?
I feel like I've heard of it. I've heard the story. I'm not sure if I've ever sat down and watched the whole thing.
You've never seen Rockstar?
I'm not sure if I have.
Oh, dude, we're going to have a movie night. Grab some popcorn. I'm going to like lay on the floor with my feet kicked up. Dude, it's such a good fun. It's terrible, but it's so good. Jennifer Aniston plays his girlfriend, and there's like, oh my God, like peak Jennifer Aniston in this movie too. Like, so good. Oh man, I fucking love this movie. Why don't you give us another band? Otherwise, you see what I mean? What the fuck is going on? Holy shit. Am I gonna fucking die?
You're getting like Final Destination right now, bro.
Yeah. What the fuck was that? Holy shit. What the fuck is going on? Oh, God. Okay, where was I?
All right.
Chris, why don't you give us the next band that you want to discuss? Otherwise, I'm going to spend the whole rest of the episode talking about Rockstar.
So a band that was pretty obvious I was going to talk about was Spinal Tap. From This Is
Oh my
Spinal
God,
Tap.
I forgot about Spinal Tap.
Like, it's how do you not talk about Spinal Tap? And this is a band that, like, those guys knew how to play their instruments. They knew how to sing. Like, it's to the point that people were asking Rob Reiner, how come you didn't make the documentary about a more well-known band? Not realizing that it was a fake band. Everything about it was fake and completely made up for this movie. But similar to some of the other things that we've talked about, artists have come out and said, like, no, some of the experiences they have are things that we've actually gone through. Like, I seem to remember seeing an interview with Slash saying, like, yeah, I've gotten lost backstage and couldn't find the stage. But This Is Spinal Tap is such a fucking good movie. I remember catching it. I think it was on TV one time. May while like I was on vacation, me and my brother found it on TV. We're watching it, and like I forget how funny it is because like I remember the songs and how silly the songs are. Songs like "Tonight I'm Gonna Rock You Tonight," or like Big Bottom, where they're all playing basses. You know, Stonehenge, Sex Farm. You know, like those are the songs I remember. Those are the parts about the movie I remember. But then there are like little things that happen and like little lines and jokes are thrown out. And I'm like, that is one of the funniest fucking things I've ever heard. And like, I never noticed it before. So the movie as a whole is hilarious. Them as a band are hilarious. And the songs are great. You know, and then they came out with something like a compilation or something called Break Like the Wind. That has the song The Majesty of Rock, which is a great song, has a line, something along the lines of like, you can feel the feeling or something like that. Like it's so silly and so ridiculous, but I love Spinal Tap, and like the fact that they could actually play their instruments and that they are just playing these characters because like none of them are even British, but they're playing these British characters. And so it's so much fun and it's so funny. And talking about fictional bands, while I was inspired by Airheads and the Lone Rangers, I knew we couldn't do this episode without me bringing up Spinal Tap.
Yeah, I'm happy you did because I completely forgot Spinal Tap. My brain went rockstar, Steel Dragon instead. One of my favorite, I mean, the gag about their drummer dying from choking on vomit. And they're like, oh my God, really? And there's like, it's like, was it his own? And it's like, no, it was somebody else's vomit that he choked on and died. And Joe Mama, I think, is the last drummer that they have that just fucking explodes at the end of the movie.
Yes, because that's part of the joke as well, is that you have the three main members. You have Nigel Tufnell, David St. Hubbins, and I'm blanking on the bass player's name, played by Harry Shearer. But the joke is that they've gone through like 40 drummers.
Yeah.
Because they all keep dying. Yeah. And then David St. Hubbins leaves the band. And then they're like interviewing Nigel, and he just kind of like lumps him in with the 40 drummers that died. It's like, well, you know, we've had a ton of past members of the band. Why is he any different? And they're like, you're really just throwing him in with the 40 drummers that have died, that like play one show and then die. And the guy who's a founding member, you're just like, well, yeah, he's one of the 40 past members of the band. Then he comes back and all this and that. But yeah, it's so funny and so ridiculous. I love it.
I love that those guys always play a band in whatever movie they do. Like, have you ever seen, is it A Mighty Wind, where they play like a bluegrass band? It's like a bluegrass convention, and you have, the two main characters from Schitt's Creek, the mom and dad. I'm completely blanking
I
on
know
their
it's
names.
Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy.
Thank you. Yeah. And they play like a bluegrass band in that movie. So it's like you get a mini Spinal Tap reunion in an alternate universe. It's so funny. So funny. I love that they're that committed to it. One of the honorable mentions I want to give, because they're sort of like, in my head, they're in the same class. It's like bands that make a really short appearance in a movie, but are like a standout, are the ghost-inspired rockabilly band from Hocus Pocus. Or they inspired Ghost. I don't know. which came first, the chicken or the egg, and the vampire band from Dusk Till Dawn. These two are like my favorite. Like, I want more time with these guys. I want to see what they're about. Like the vampire band, when they turn into vampires and like fuck off. What do they say? Like, fuck you, good night, and then they just explode. The fact that they turn into vampires and then their instruments are also like made out of human remains. Like the bass that the dude is playing is like a guy's like torso with the bass neck through it. It looks like that one episode of the Hannibal TV series. It's like so sick. I love that. But it's like, it's those bands that you get in movies that make a super, super short appearance where it's like, it's not meant to take any attention away from the main plot. But in my head, I was always like, no, I want to spend time with those dudes. Like, I want to get to know them. What are they doing? What are their albums like? How many drummers have they had? That's of the two, I would say that the vampire band in From Dusk Till Dawn is probably the cooler one. But I love the look of the ghost rockabilly band, like the skeleton rockabilly band from Hocus Pocus. I just keep calling them Ghost because of that meme where they're like, oh, this is where Tobias got the idea for Ghost, was from Hocus Pocus. Which, I mean, big if true, you know, I wouldn't doubt it. We're also getting a Ghost movie, so they're going to be lumped into this. I mean, they're a real band, but they're going to have their own cinematic debut soon, too.
There you go.
Or by the time this episode comes out, it'll be out already.
Yeah.
Have you spent any time with the vampire bands from Dusk Till Dawn or the band from Hocus Pocus?
I have not. I think I've seen From Dusk Till Dawn. I have not seen Hocus Pocus, so I am not familiar with that.
I feel like if you see these bands, you would know them. And that's the thing is like the movie does such a good job of creating such a striking image with these bands.
Yeah.
That's what caught my attention anyway as a kid. And I would love it if we had like albums to tie in to, you know, inspired by the film. I miss stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, music inspired by the film Queen of the Damned or whatever. Yeah. I love stuff like that. But then you'll get like a band like Deathgasm where they have a whole movie dedicated to them.
Yeah.
And you do get to spend some time with the band. I don't know that we have any original music that came from that, though. They did give us a really cool meme, though.
Yes.
The guy in the corpse paint eating the ice cream next to the girl dressed in all bubblegum pink.
That's a very different movie.
That's a Freudian slip. That's what that is. Chris, what's another band you want to bring up?
So to take us away from that in a little more wholesome of a direction, let's talk about one of the greatest rock bands in history, Wild Stallions.
Oh my God, yeah.
Bill S. Preston and Theodore Logan. You know, be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. Yeah, this is another band that immediately came to mind. And unfortunately, I think right up until the new movie came out, there was no original music from Wild Stallions. And it did feel like part of the joke was like, oh, Wild Stallions are a huge deal in the future. But right now, it's two dudes in high school who have no idea what the fuck they're doing. And so it's like, how does this band that is two guys that have created no music, the greatest band that ever existed? And that's always been fun. But at the end of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, you do get them performing God Gave Rock and Roll to You, which is a great performance. I love that they're such a bad band that they need to travel through time to give themselves enough time to be like better at their instruments and to be a better band. And then they show up and play it, and the Grim Reaper is their bassist, and like they've got like aliens playing the keyboard and shit. And it's
fucking
just
Data.
and it's just a good time. But yeah, I do know that it's in looking it up. I haven't seen Bill and Ted Face the Music, but apparently there is like original music for Wild Stallions in the new movie. I've only seen the first two movies, Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey. But yeah, I felt like again, similar to Spinal Tap and the Lone Rangers. If you're talking about fictional bands, you got to talk about Wild Stallions.
Yeah, 100%. And the new movie is great. They do such a good job of like continuing the wholesomeness that Bill and Ted is known for. Because like I remember watching Bill and Ted and like the scene where all the historical figures are like running around through the mall to Extremes Play With Me. It was like so cool, and seeing Mozart. Was it Mozart or Beethoven? Mozart, right? That they have playing the keyboards like in that section of the movie.
I thought it was Beethoven.
It might have been Beethoven. Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, the fact that we never got any original music, and then the performance that we do get at the end of Bogus Journey is just them covering Kiss is great. Yeah. It's like it's continuing that joke, but the new one like does a good job of, because they introduce their daughters as characters, and it's really, really fun. It's really wholesome. It still kind of continues that idea of like music has the power to change the world and unite people and stuff. And like if you get a chance to watch it, it is a really good watch. It's really funny. Getting to see them during the prison scene where they're all like jacked was fucking great too. And like it's a good time because you can tell that they are just having a good time like revisiting those characters too. You know? And I love that. So a movie that I refuse to shut up about, so much so that every Thursday I will repost or retweet the tweet that goes out from this account, is the movie Phantom of the Paradise. And the tweet that I retweet every Thursday is a part in a movie where the Phantom like is just waking up. He's been operated on. He asks the producer, "What day is it?" He goes, "Thursday. Today is Thursday." So every fucking Thursday, I share that shit. But this movie is just so fucking good. And I got to talk about this movie on the Hauntsville Cryptcast recently because I just refuse to fucking shut up about this movie. It's by Brian De Palma, and it's basically the stories of Phantom of the Opera, Faust, and Dorian Gray all wrapped into one with a ton of original music. And like the big like evil in this movie is the producer, and they kind of talk about how like the music industry will take original ideas from artists that have like a lot of heart and have a lot of passion behind their music, and they'll be like, "Hey, we're gonna buy your music from you." In reality, it's being stolen, and then we're gonna just repackage it and give it to other bands. So the joke in the movie is that Winslow, who becomes the Phantom, writes this grand cantata about Faust. Swan, the producer, hears it. Paul Williams steals it, and then has like a bunch of different bands perform his music. Yeah. And they like twist around the lyrics. At first, they're like a greaser kind of like Sha-na-na type band, and then they're the same guys become a surf rock band, and then those same guys become the Undeads, and they are like this avant-garde like German expressionist style makeup. Again, you can see why I'm a fan of Ghosts. I love shit like this. And they take one of his songs and they do a cover of it. It's called Somebody Super Like You. And it's just like a hard-hitting, almost like Arthur, oh geez, what was his name? Hellfire, the King of Hellfire, that we did in our Old Time Rock and Roll.
Oh my God, yeah.
In our Old Time, was it Old Time Rock and Roll or the Masked Men
That was
episode?
Masked Men, yeah.
Yeah. But it's kind of like along that vibe where it's like this 70s hard rock sound. And like I love this movie so much because of the original music that we get, especially this song, because my dad used to play this song all the time. He had it on like a cassette tape that we would play in the car. And so I just grew up like hearing the music before I ever even realized that the movie was a thing. But yeah, I love that like they're kind of hitting home at the fact that the music industry is just going to like bring in artists, chew them up, spit them out. And at the end of the day, they're the ones that win because they're just recycling the pure ideas and making it more marketable and poppy and whatever they need to be at the time to be successful, which is a shitty reality of the music industry.
Yeah, definitely.
Chris, what's another band that you want to mention? And I'm hoping that it's the next band that I have on my list as well.
So the next band I actually want to talk about is an animated band from the from the TV show Doug, The Beets. I would be lying to you if I didn't say that this was probably like the second band that came to mind. Like it was like, or I guess technically the third after Lone Ranger, Spinal Tap, and then I was like, The Beets.
Right.
You know, they have killer songs like Killer Tofu, I Need More Allowance, Where's My Sock? And like it's such catchy music and like ridiculous, and it's so funny how it's like in this cartoon they're like, oh, we need a band, let's like create this universe's version of the Beatles and just call them the Beets. And like it's so good. And then like I remember the part as a kid that I thought like there's no way a band could actually do that, is that there's some like music show or something and the assistant principal is like yodeling on stage, and then the band is going to come out and the singer's like, hey, this gives me an idea for a song we should do. And like they write the song backstage and come out and perform the new song, and it's I Need More Allowance, which includes like yodeling in the middle of it. And like I always thought that was a little ridiculous, but I still love this music. Like I still remember how these songs go and how ridiculous it was, because I used to watch so much fucking Nickelodeon and Doug would be on, and I always loved the episodes with the Beets and their music. And so that was always fun. There was also an episode where Doug formed a band and they had a song, Banging on a Trash Can, which is great.
Isn't it Banging on a Trash Can and Think Big? Didn't he have two?
Well, I think some of the things I saw was Banging on a Trash Can, parentheses, Think Big. Like, I think it's, I feel like it was
it's like a tag at the end of the song. I think it was
like,
something.
I feel like it was two very different styles that was considered one song. But yeah, I knew I had to bring up the Beets just because I'm like, no one talks about the Beets. Like it's this, there's no reason to ever talk about the Beets, because it's like, even though they had original music, it's not like anyone went through the effort of like, hey, let's release a Beets album. Let's, really showcase this fake band we made up. It's like, it's they're more or less throwaway jokes, but I love it. I love it so much.
I loved, like, Killer Tofu was always just such a cool song. And I feel like anyone that's our age, right? Anybody in their 30s, like you mentioned Killer Tofu, and you're just going to hear like a chorus of people off in the distance. And it's great. It's so much fun. Like the fact that you had in like a kids show, a band that was like, supposed to be like the heavier Beatles. And like kind of showing how at that age you're going to get into these bands and like enjoy this type of music, and like that everyone is a big fan of the Beets is like the best thing too. It just makes it a lot of fun to watch and a lot of fun to remember the music. Oh my God, you are coming out with like top tier fucking choices, dude. The band I thought you were going to mention next is the band Crucial Taunt from the movie Wayne's World, and their cover of the Ballroom Blitz. And fucking, I mean, come on, Cassandra! I didn't get to watch Wayne's World like as a kid. My parents were like, you're absolutely not watching that. We are not letting you watch this fucking movie. So I didn't see it until I was like in my teens. But yeah, I just like always loved the idea of sort of like what I was saying with Phantom of the Paradise, where it's like, oh yeah, we're going to take your idea and now you've got to like do this music video and you got to hold a snake. And she's like, but I'm trying to perform. Like, I have to hold the snake too? Like, what's going on? It's like Rob Lowe is now taking charge of the band itself. But I love a good Ballroom Blitz cover, and Crucial Taunt just like delivers as best as they possibly fucking can. And we get like tons of cameos in this movie too.
Oh yeah.
Right? You get Alice Cooper, who's in a lot more movies than you would think. Like it's so weird. Again, we were talking about this on the Hauntsville Cryptcast about how many horror movies Alice Cooper just shows up in. And he's just there. Like some of them, he's not even like the main focus. He's just in the background as Alice Cooper. So weird. Did you watch this movie a ton as a kid?
I wouldn't say I watched it a ton, but I have watched Wayne's World, and I love it. You know, see, I always say, the Wayne's World party time, excellent. Like I love that, and I love how often Michael Myers and Dana Carvey have come back as those characters, as Wayne and Garth. It seems like any chance they get, they are put in those costumes, and Dana Carvey has to do that underbite that he complains about having to do every time he plays Garth. But yeah, it's I love Wayne's World, and yeah, it's great. And when I was looking up fictional bands, I saw this band, and I was like, oh, maybe that's someone I should mention. But instead, I talked about the Beets.
I love the fact that they get to relish, you know, the joy that they have of playing these characters, but also for Cassandra specifically, the fact that she got to be like a front woman. You know what I mean? Like that we got that representation of a front woman for, you know, an up and coming hard rock band. And like that's really cool too, especially at that time. Yeah. Like to see something like that. Like sure, she was more so for like the guys watching the movie to oogle at. Yes. But that was kind of the point where it's like you're missing the point if that's all you're taking from it. Yeah. You know, that she was an artist and she was like trying to be serious about it and not just being marketed as like the hot singer. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's always really fun too. Also, we have to credit Wayne's World for basically giving me the idea for the heavy metal street cred sting that we do. That was like, I think I had mentioned to Chris, I was like, I'm going to do something like the Wayne's World fucking like riff. It's like that and Bill and Ted. I was like, okay, I'm going to mix those two together basically to have a little sting for us during the show.
There you go.
Chris, who's another band you want to bring up?
So I already mentioned one animated band, and it made me realize a band that I neglected to include in my notes, dethklok of Metalocalypse.
Yeah.
I love dethklok. Like I legitimately was excited to buy the Death album and listen to that album, and like there are some really good fucking songs by dethklok. Like Brendan Small knows what he's doing. And like it's so good and it's so much fun, and like I feel like similar to Spinal Tap, it's like I know what I'm doing as a musician, so I'm going to basically weaponize that to make the stupidest songs and lyrics possible.
Yeah.
You know, when the first episode is them writing a heavy metal coffee jingle. And like you have that. And like I always loved the joke when they're trying to do the album underwater. And they have Mermaider, and the producer plays Mermaider, and it's just the word Mermaider like over and over again under an obnoxious riff. And like that's all you got of the song until the Death album was that one bit. And I always loved that. And then you have like Birthday Death Day is a great song. I know off of the Death album, I think it was supposed to be Pickles, the drummer, singing. Deathcopter is a great song. That's a great fucking song. And speaking of Pickles, there's his band, Snakes and Barrels, which was supposed to be like Guns N' Roses. And like the one song that they have in the show is great. So yeah, Metalocalypse was chock full of great fictional, like real music from fictional bands, because Brendan Small is actually good at writing music. You know, so it was a lot of fun. And I had to make sure that I bring up dethklok. Once I realized I didn't include them in my notes, I was like, oh, I got to talk about dethklok. I loved the Death album. I listened to it all the time.
And it's exactly what we were saying before, where like, you know, a lot of times you're not going to get original music from these bands, especially if it's an animated band. We don't have a Beets album. Yeah. But it was... You put it perfectly, where Brendan Smalls basically weaponized the fact that he was proficient at guitar. Yeah. And he wanted to write music. So like he had an excuse like maybe nobody was going to give him a record deal, but they wanted to pick up this, animated show, this cartoon about this over the top, ridiculous heavy metal band. And so like that's the way that they got it done. And I love that. I love that because you've got like legitimate dethklok concerts and like fans of the music. I remember the one episode where they are on an island of like stray cats.
Yes, release the kitties.
I fucking love that. I love it, and I love that. Like
the Nathan Explosion home for wayward kitties.
Yeah. I love that they were all like a take on like real life artists as well. You know what I mean? Like that you had Nathan Explosion was like Corpse Grinder.
Yep.
Oh, was it Squizgar was Alexi Laiho, I think.
Yeah.
And you had like Devin Townsend in there and stuff like that too. Like it's so good. It's a show for the people that understand the humor in heavy metal and how these personalities are so ridiculous and so over the top. And thankfully we do have, you can go see them perform as dethklok and you can listen to the music and everything and enjoy that stuff too. And I love that. That's a great choice. I'm glad that you brought them up and that you corrected the ship there.
Yes.
And you made sure that you mentioned them, because I'm sure if we had done this and released this episode without mentioning them, we were going to get a ton of hate comments on YouTube. Yes. But thank you for the engagement. So the last fictional artist that I want to bring up is one that I just discovered very, very recently from the show Chips. This is like an 80s or like late 70s, early 80s TV show about motorcycle highway cops in Chicago. Like, is that what it stands for? Chicago Interstate?
I think it's California. I think it's because it's a lowercase I. So the HI is highway. So I think it's California Highway Patrol.
Oh, is that what it is?
I think that's
I always thought it was like Chicago Interstate Patrol Police or something like that. But anyways, in an episode of Chips, it was a Halloween episode, they have an artist called Moloch, and he is supposed to be like this Gene Simmons-esque satanic singer. And like the people in town are trying to get rid of him and like trying to do away with him and trying to ban his performances in their town because they think he's like performing these satanic rituals to get people to come to his shows. And it's so over the top. He's kind of made up like Gene Simmons, but it's like white and red makeup instead. And the song is called Devil Take Me, and it's so good. I looked up the episode just so that I could hear more of the song. And like I wasn't able to find anything with it as like an actual song that you can download or anything. But the clip is just so over the top. Like you've got a dude with the Ace Frehley like gauntlet, like space gauntlet get up as the guitarist and stuff like that. And again, he's very much like supposed to be this Gene Simmons type character with the eye makeup and like the tongue and like the widow's peak like drawn in and stuff too. And it's so over the top. And I mean, we've done an episode on the Satanic Panic. I love a good like Christian Panic kind of character that gets created to be like, oh yeah, this is what heavy metal's like, and these are the dangers of heavy metal, and these are what these artists are all about and stuff like that. And I'm like, not all the time, but when they are, you're just making it real fun for us, because now I want this guy to be a real artist. Yeah. And apparently he was played by the guy that played Ralph on Happy Days. So it was just funny that you had someone that was on Happy Days playing a satanic psychedelic rock singer. Like, you've got to look it up if you haven't seen this clip. Maybe I'll have Chris throw it in the fucking episode or something. But yeah, it's so funny. So good. Did you ever watch Chips like when you were younger? Was that like for me, it was a sick day. Like, I'm just going to put Chips on because I knew Eric Estrada. Like, you know what I mean?
I feel like all I know about it is that it's Eric Estrada. And like, I feel like the only reason I've seen clips is because of how often I would watch the VH1 I Love the 80s and I Love the 90s types of shows. And so I've seen like Scott Ian and Michael Ian Black talk about Chips. Like, that's my exposure to Chips.
Chicago Highway Patrol. That makes so much more sense than or no, what was it? California
Highway Patrol.
Not Chicago Interstate Police. SIS.
Because I think the S at the end of chips is meant to be
also lowercase.
Is meant to be like pluralizing the word chip.
Yeah.
So
because it was, oh god, what were their names? Shoot. Oh man, this is gonna bother me. I'm gonna have to look it up later now. Because it was just like it was Eric Estrada and the other guy.
Yeah.
On the motorcycle.
Yeah.
And they were partners. And it's just like it's the perfect like encapsulation of those like late 70s, early 80s TV shows where it was like, here's a concept and we're gonna like buddy them up and stuff like that, and it's just gonna be they're gonna be on wacky adventures while they ride their police motorcycles.
Yep. So another fictional band or fictional artist that I think we've actually brought up before on this podcast is Chris Gaines, the Garth Brooks character. And let me tell you, I was very disappointed to find on Spotify right before this podcast that Garth Brooks took all of his music off of Spotify. So
did he?
I can't listen to Chris Gaines, which was disappointing, I guess. But yeah, we brought it up before, and thinking about fictional bands, I was like, I think Chris Gaines counts as a fictional artist.
Yeah.
That never got the movie he was supposed to be from.
Garth Brooks saw The Crow and was like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Oh my god, fucking Chris Gaines. Did he take all of his music off of Spotify because Tom Segura has been bullying him and calling him a serial killer for the last 3 or 4 years?
Maybe, because I know a lot of people took their music off of Spotify for various reasons.
Yeah.
So yeah, I once I looked it up and saw, oh fuck, I can't listen to Chris Gaines. I was like, that sounds familiar. That Garth Brooks was like, fuck you, take all my music off of Spotify.
Yeah.
So I wasn't surprised, but it was a little disappointing. So with all this talk of fictional bands, it got me reminiscing about something. We have mentioned before, me and John met at Five Towns College, where I was studying film. And like so many students, I had these lofty goals of, making films or producing TV shows or all of this. And I had one TV show idea of the super original concept of a group of friends in college. And I had written several scripts. I had developed what all of the seasons would be, what the overarching, story arcs would be of this show. And I believe I developed like the idea of at least 2 seasons worth of episodes and what the episodes were going to be.
Okay.
One of those episodes was a talent show episode. So I had to come up with fake bands to perform at the talent show. The concept of the show and of the episode, just so this way everything makes narrative sense, is there's the main character and his best friend going to the same school. They hear that there's going to be this talent show, and one of the characters is like, hey, we should reunite our high school punk rock band, Skid Mark on the Underpants of the Universe. And so I came up with this, and I wrote like a shitty punk rock song that a high school kid would write called Start a Fight that was supposed to be their original song. And I figured there would be like VHS footage of them like performing at a high school talent show, the song Start a Fight. But one of the characters are like, no, we shouldn't do that. We should do something different. There's always bands that win the talent show. We should perform a magic show. And they get like the main character's crush to be like their onstage assistant and all that. Mm-hmm. But really what drives it is they're like, hey, this one band has won every year. They're going to be seniors this year. They're definitely going to win again. That's the band Blood Dylan, the black metal tribute to Bob Dylan. So I wrote a black metal cover of The Times They Are A-Changin', and had this idea that there would be dudes up there in corpse paint singing "The Times They Are A-Changin'," and that was the idea. I also had a character in the show based on my friend Chang, who was going to reveal that he's entering his band that he's a drummer for, which is Metallica, the all-Asian tribute to Metallica. And they would perform songs like Ride the Lightning, Nothing Else Matters, and the character would be Lars Ulrich. You know, that would be his stage name because he would be the drummer. So these were the fictional bands I came up with. Just so this way everyone knows how the episode ends. Everyone does their performance, and at the end of the episode, when they reveal who wins the talent show, in a shocking turn of events, Blood Dylan comes in third place, Metallica wins second place, and just when you think the main characters are going to win the talent show with their magic show performance, instead, the theater kid who did a one-person rendition of Romeo and Juliet, who was half made up as Romeo and half made up as Juliet, wins the talent show. And so at the end of the talent show, the main characters actually won nothing. They were probably the worst performance at the talent show. But because the main character is so bummed that they lost, his best friend recruits Lars Ulrich to play drums, and Skidmark on the Underpants of the Universe reunites in their garage and plays their one song, Start a Fight. So yeah, talking about fictional bands, I wanted to bring up the fictional bands that I've created as part of this show that will never exist except in my head, and I love it.
I fucking love it. Metallica. That's fucking awesome. I love that. Chris, you've made me sad that I will never enjoy the song Start a Fight by the band Skidmark on the Underpants of the Universe. So to make up for it, why don't you give me your suggestion for this episode?
So my suggestion this week is the fictional band Love Fist from the Grand Theft Auto universe.
Okay.
Love Fist is introduced in Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which takes place in 1986. And so they are very much supposed to be a hair metal band. And they're basically Steel Panther before Steel Panther.
Okay.
And so, they're called Love Fist, and they have songs like Fist Fury, Fist Till Morning, Dangerous Bastard. Yeah, it is classic Rockstar Games humor in a 1980s hair metal band. And you get to meet the band in Vice City. I think you end up like escorting the band in a limo. You're like at their concerts and everything. In Grand Theft Auto, they have fake radio stations that play songs. Yeah. Love Fist is played on the rock station. In Grand Theft Auto 5, which came out in 2013, they bring back Love Fist in a side mission where you go to a club that Love Fist has just performed at, and you interact with one of the members of Love Fist. And it was that same year, 2013, that Rockstar Games released a 4-song EP that is the 4 songs that they have for Love Fist.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
So you can go and listen to
They did it.
the music of Love Fist, and it's hilarious. Like I said, it is very much all the things we love about Steel Panther, and of course Rockstar Games is gonna fucking go for it and be great at it and have this, ridiculous, inappropriate humor about it. So yeah, I suggest everyone check out the classic band Love Fist.
That reminds me of the Greatest Hates brought to us by
Liquid Death.
Oh, what is it called? Liquid Death. There you go. Yeah. I love that they actually committed to it though, and came out with an EP. So my suggestion is going to be a little different. I want to shout out a movie which features a band in a wacky situation. That's the movie Green Room. It's all about this punk band that goes on tour. They have a gig that they're supposed to do. They basically start out doing like the Denny's Grand Slam. And then the next gig gets canceled. And to make up for it, this guy that's interviewing them is like, hey, I can get you guys a gig playing at my cousin's venue. But just a warning, it's like a skinhead bar. So you're going to want to go in there and kind of tread lightly. So the band, the Ain't Rights, decide to piss off all the Nazis by playing Nazi Punks Fuck Off. And boy, do they win over some fucking fans. Which is to say, everyone hates them. They witness something go down in the green room and then find themselves trapped in there because the Nazis are like, well, we can't let them go now because they just saw some shit. And then it's the rest of the movie is them just trying to fight their way out of this venue versus neo-Nazis who are led by fucking Professor X himself, Patrick Stewart. And he plays the most menacing neo-Nazi, like the type where it's like, oh, you would not know that this guy's a neo-Nazi because he has managed to blend himself in, where all the other guys are like very much showing off the boots and braces look and wearing it on their sleeves, where he's like, no, you got to think smart. And that's fucking terrifying. Yeah. But their performance of Nazi Punks Fuck Off is so great. And the movie stars the late, great Anton Yelchin as their bass player. And it's a whole lot of fucking fun. It's actually a bummer of a movie, but it's a really great movie. And I wish that we could go out and see the Ain't Rights pissing off some Nazis. So go watch the movie Green Room. We've got Asian accents in this episode. We've got Nazis being mentioned. It's like those SNL skits. Oh, yes, we've got everything. Chris, this was a really fun episode. I hope that our listeners comment with their favorite fictional bands, or you know what? Drop whatever your idea is for your own fictional band down in the comments for you once this episode is up. And with that, thanks for tuning into the Scrap Metal Podcast. The time has come for us to pack up our gear, but we'll be back to rock out with you in the next episode.
Stay metal, everyone.
Good night.